fact, I was involved in the negotiations between the Palestinians and the Israelis, and I made the keynote speech at Geneva when it was announced.
Keynote, as in speech, refers to the most important speech. Key is something that you use to get into a building or to open up a lock, but key is also something that's very important. You can talk about key knowledge, a key person, or in this case, a keynote speech. It's the most important speech. So, for example, President Obama, he gave a keynote speech at the 2004 Democrat Convention, and his speech was considered to be the most important speech of the entire convention.
So it's important to remember that if someone gives a speech, let's say at a conference, it's different from giving a keynote speech, because keynote is the most important and prominent speech at the event.
Or it could also be from the most prestigious person. So you could have different people giving speeches. Some of them, you never heard of these people, but you listen to their speech. And then there's one person who everybody knows who they are. For example, Hillary Clinton would give a keynote speech pretty much anywhere she goes because she's the most likely the most important person there.
Sharon had accepted that premise. In fact, he pointed out to me a very intriguing idea. He said, why doesn't Israel give to the Palestinians a land corridor between Gaza and the West Bank, which is about 36 miles?
Premise refers to the basis of an argument. And the premise can be accepted as true or not accepted as true. But regardless, the argument follows from the basic premise. So we might start with the premise that freedom is important, which people can generally agree on, and then reach some conclusion based on that premise. And then similarly, different professions are also based on premises. For example, medicine is based on different premises in biology, and so you can naturally reach conclusions if you agree with the basic premises.
You can say that the theory of evolution and creationism are
based on different premises.
Right.
Evolution is based on biology. Creationism is based on the active participation of God.
Okay, and another important meaning of premise, it means is to be on.
That means on the location of something. So, for example, you could say, is there a security guard on the premises? Or is there a superintendent on the premises? That means, is the person actually here, or is the person at some other location and they have to come here?
So if you booked into a hotel and you have a problem, you want to talk to a manager, then you can ask, is the manager on the premises?
That's correct, yes.
Are now moving inevitably, apparently to me, to a one-state solution where there's only going to be one nation between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea, controlled ostensibly by the Jews, the Israelis. But this can't last.
Ostensibly means something that has the appearances of something. So, for example, I could see someone dressed as a policeman, and I could say he is ostensibly a police officer. But if it's Halloween and I know that it's just a costume and he's not a police officer, then he would not ostensibly be a police officer at all.
So it's arguably or allegedly. It means might be or might not be a policeman, but looks like a policeman.
Exactly. Or you could say my car was ostensibly repaired properly, which means that they claimed that it's repaired properly. It might be repaired properly, but I'm not sure if that's true just yet.
Or as an adjective, you can have an ostensible reason behind something, which means that's the official,
Explanation, right.
but there might be ulterior motives behind that.
Exactly. And the use of the word ostensibly implies that the other person might be trying to deceive you.
Okay?
And you don't believe them. You could say, I am going to ostensibly be paid on Friday, which means that, it's possible, but you're not convinced.
And Israel will be faced with an impossible choice. Either have part of their citizens deprived of a right of citizenship, that is the non-Jews, or to let the Arabs outvote the Jews in their own country.
Deprive means to take something away from somebody. And typically it's something that people expect that they should have just because they're alive. For example, somebody can be deprived of food or deprived of water. Or
If you're stranded on an inhabitable island, right, you can say deprived of food and water.
Exactly, or deprived of shelter. Or if someone smokes cigarettes, they could be deprived of cigarettes if they consider it to be something that they should be able to have.
So to deprive means to take away or to remove something. And
Right.
in this context, deprived of citizenship means citizenship was taken away.
To take away someone's citizenship, yes. You can also talk about deprivation as well. That's where someone is deprived of things that people consider to be fairly normal. So if somebody grows up in deprivation, it means that they don't have a nice place to live, they don't get enough food to eat, poor education, things that people feel that people should be able to have.
So you can say they went through
The school of hard knocks, right. Or you could say a lot of children around the world grow up in deprivation. They're living on the streets. They don't even have parents or homes. Grew up in the school of hard knocks.
I grew up in a community called Archery, about 2.5 miles outside the little town of Plains, which has about 600 people. There were 200 people in Archery. We didn't have any white neighbors. All my neighbors were African American, were black people.
Jimmy Carter seems to pronounce white as white with an H sound. Do you know why he pronounces it this way?
I don't know the exact reason. It could be he just made a mistake, or it could be some type of regionalism. Jimmy Carter comes from Georgia, so people from Georgia speak with a southern accent peculiar to Georgia. So that's probably the way they pronounce the word in Georgia.
And there are different dialects in the United States since it's a big country and different regions and regional expressions. And can you give an example of something that the first thing comes into your mind?
One that I'm aware of is that people from the South will oftentimes pronounce long vowels rather than short vowels. For example, there's an old song, I say tomato, you say tomato.
You like tomato, I like tomato, potato, potato, tomato, tomato. Let's call the whole thing off.
People from the South will typically say tomato. People from the North will typically say tomato.
But you say tomato.
I'm from the South.
That's why I've always said tomatoes. I think I've heard most of the time tomato and not tomato.
Well, that's true. That's true. Most people actually do say tomato. Some people say tomato. People from the South would typically say it's a diversion, where people from the North would typically say it's a diversion. Any time there's an alternative choice between using a long vowel or using a short vowel, people from the South will typically use the long vowel, and people from the North will typically use the short vowel.
But what are the typical words or expressions that come from the South? One that comes to my mind is y'all.
People from the South will say y'all.
Mhm.
People from the North will say you all.
Mhm.
Another thing people from the South do is they will tend to drop their R's. They might say, somebody from the North might say, I live in the world, where somebody from the South might say, I live in the world. They would not pronounce the R.
And that's what the New England is famous for, like New Yorkers. That's how they speak, correct? They
New
would
York.
say parking instead of parking.
Can I park my car in Harvard Yard? Can I park my car in Harvard Yard?
Exactly. And that also comes from England. That's the way people speak in England. They don't pronounce their R's either.
That's good. That's why people like British English. Many people have difficulty with the American R sound.
That's correct.
That's all for today. Tom Taylor is an ESL tutor. He teaches English in the United States and outside, all over the world, using Skype. He can be reached at his website, which is
ESL-fullsteamahead.com.
click on this link and check out his website and email with questions. Thank you, Tom, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.